This is Amud Yomi Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Gimel Amud Beis. I'm holding in the bottom of Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph as we're getting involved in the sugya of Ksiva. We're about 8 lines from the bottom. Amar Rebbe Yehuda. Amar Rebbe Yehuda Matzinu says the Mishnah. Rebbe Yehuda said that we find that there are times you can write 2 letters which will encompass part of a larger name. Shem, Shin Mem from Shimon or Shmuel, etc. Says the Gemara, is it that when you have 2 letters, part of 2 larger names that you're chayiv? But if there's 2 letters and they're not part of a larger name, does Rav Yehuda hold he's not chayiv? For example, says Rashi, let's say you wrote Shin Shin, Sheish, which comes out of the larger name, Sheishach, which is a name, or Teis from Teitenu, Chat from Chichim. In these cases, are you not chayiv? Because if you just said Shin Mem, Shein, Shem, which are 2 letters from Shimon or Shmuel. Says the Gemara, but that can't be V'atani. We learned in a Brayso of also. Achas. Says the pasuk, Nefshki sech lebeshagav Hashem lekecha l'sasinim va'asa me'achas me'heina. Achas means 1. So yach, everything achichtav kol ha'shei, v'ashiyarei kol ha'beged. You think there's only a chiyuv. Or do you do something in its entirety? V'ashiyasei kol ha'nafa. You sieve entirely, sift entirely, Tamaloi mar me'achas, from 1. That you don't have to do the whole thing. Even part of a malacha is enough. But if you only add the word me'achas, I would think that there's a chiyuv even for 1 letter. You wove 1 strand. You made 1 part of a sieve. If you turn over to Kivil Mabeis, achas. That has to be a complete action. So on one hand it says me'achas, on the other hand it says achas. How do we reconcile the two? Al kitzad, einay chayev, that there's no chiyav at sheyichtav shem katam mishem gadol. Shem Shimon Shmuel, Noach me Nachar, Dan me Daniel, God me Gadiel. So what do we see? We see according to Tanakh, any 2 letters enough. Rav Yehuda Omer, if you look kasav el shtei ois, vein shem echad chayev, ki on sheis tas urar gog chach. So Yehuda says no, any 2 letters is a chiyuv. Amar Rav Yosi teaches Rav Yosi. We're on Kilkim Lamed Beis, 6 lines down. The first word on the line is Yosi. Says Rav Yosi, are you chayiv because of kaisev? Alo ina chayiv al misham roishem. You're chayiv, as we already started seeing in the previous Amud. There's a chayiv because of roishem. Not even that you wrote a complete word, but rather that you made a mark. Why? Where do we find this? Says Rav Yosi. Shkein roishmei shel karsha mishkan. They would mark the boards of the mishkan. Leida to know Ezeh ben Zugai, to know which one is paired with the next board. Like we said, the example of the sticker boards. You were A and B sometimes to know that they go next to each other. Lefikach, therefore says Rav Yosi, Sarat tzvita achas al shnei nesarim. If you made 1 sarat, 1 line, 1 scratch on 2 boards, shtei tzvitas on nesarachot, 2 scratches on 1 board, says Rav Yosi chayiv even without writing any letters. So we're building over here. The first sheet says you have to write a whole name. Rav Yehuda said 2 letters of a larger name. The third sheet said any 2 letters. Rav Yosi says even 1 line. Rabbi Shimon Omer says Rav Shimon a 4th shita. V'asachas. How does he learn that pasuk? Yochel everything he should call a shame. Ashi Aaron Koloyev Beged Ashi Asik Kol Anafot Tamlam Remeyachas. Imeyachas says Rav Shimon Yochel everything v'lokas v'loisachas. Will matter if you look over Kelchot Echad 1 strand. V'los Elabayisach Benavot Tamaloy Merachas. So says Rav Shimon, we have this dichotomy of me'achas and achas. So says Rav Shimon, we learn it on Keitzad. In Echayv Hachasam Malacha, Sheki Yotzei Ba Mitkayemes. You have to do something that similarly it is in Miskayim. And finally concludes the Brayso Rav Yosi. Omer says Rav Yosi, v'achas achas v'yaseina pam shachayiv achas al kulam. Sometimes there's one chiyuv, one chatos for many averos. Upam shachayiv al kol achas v'achas. End of Brayso. So we have a long Brayso, 5 different shitais, and this Brayso now is going to be utilized as a kasha on our sugya. Says the Gemara, at the end of the day, what do we see? Kutani miya Rav Yehuda Imer Tor Rav Yehuda. If you look, and it's not when it's 2 letters, when it's part of a larger word, Shemei Shimon, Shemei Shmuel. See, according to Rav Yehuda, any 2 letters, part of a word is going to be enough. Answers the Gemara on the very land of the narrow lines over here on Kov Gimel and Beis. Loi kasha hadidei hadirabe. One is Rav Yehuda's own shita. One is the shita of his Rebbe Titania, as we learned in our Brayso. Titania Rabbi Yehuda, Mishem Rabbi Gamliel, reads the name Rabbi Gamliel. On the first white line, if you look, so we see Rabbi Yehuda saying, B'Shem is Rabbi Gamliel, that any 2 letters will have a chiyuv, and that's the 2 Rabbi Yehudas. That is a stira. One is he himself, one is he telling over the din of his Rebbe. Says the Gemara, okay, so we don't have a stira in Rabbi Yehuda, but let's go back to the Brayso itself. Rav Shimon, Hainu Tanikama, says the Gemara, Rav Shimon and the Tanikama both seem to be saying the same din, that any 2 letters of a larger word is going to be chayiv. Chit, maybe you're going to say, tell me, elef, olav, de ezrach, ikebeinayu. If someone writes 2 letters, 2 aleph of the word azrecha, Tanigam is elef de azrecha, loy mechayiv. There's no chayiv. Why? Because aleph on its own is not a word. Rav Shimon Savar, Kivin Deisa Begelutre Ba'alma Chayiv. Shimon says, since we find on amulets that one would write aleph, there is a chiyuv. Says where they can't be lemim or the Rav Shimon l'chumra. If that's true, it comes out that Rav Shimon is being machmir. Rav Shimon is holding aleph is going to be chayiv. Tanya, what's the problem? Says the Brayso, if you drill any amount, you're chayiv. Amgar kolshu, amabe kolshu, you tan. Tzar b'kli tzura kolshu, you atzar b'kli tzura kolshu, you engrave on a kli any design. Shimon Aimer, you're chayiv. In all those cases, comes along Rav Shimon and he's mekel. You have to drill the entire thing. You scrape the entire pole. You tan the entire kulai till you etch in the entire design. So it says Rav Shimon, it says the Gemara of Shimon is the opinion that you were chayiv in all these cases. So how can we say that it's going to come out that Rav Shimon is going to be mekel? Therefore it says the Gemara Rav Shimon Ashminan must be Rav Shimon is come to teach us. Shirtov is a shame kulai that you're not chayiv until you write the entire word. That's why when Rav Shimon originally said that you have to have malacha mitkayemes, it means with his original machshava, which is an entire word. Ask the Gemara, do you really think Rav Shimon says this? V'tani learned in a rice, Rav Shimon Aimer, v'asa achas yoch, lachich levet z'shem kulatam lemer me'achas. So we see Rav Shimon clearly as masking to the Josh of me'achas, that there's no chiyuv, that you do not need to have a complete achas, even me'achas, even part of the larger malacha, there's going to be a chiyuv. Answers the Gemara, Tzitze Mach, you know, we should explain, as a pasuk kulai. You think you have to write the entire pasuk. That's the chiddush of me'achas. You don't need a whole pasuk, but not necessarily do you even need an entire word. We go into the next sheet of Rav Yosi. Rav Yosi, explains the Gemara. The first word line is Rabbi Chanina, smack in the middle of the white lines. My time in the Rav Yosi come from Achas me Achas, Heina me Heina. The pasuk on one hand could have said Achas, it says me Achas. Pasuk could have said heina them. It says meheina of them. And from there we darshan achas shehi heina. Achas and heina, one and them. What we do is we darshan as if the pasuk says that there's a case of an achas, that there's one that is similar to heina, to them, a singular, similar to a plural, veheina, and then the flip side, there's a case of them, of many, shiachas, which is similar to one. What is such a scenario? Explains the Gemara, achas is shemin. One means you have to write the entire word, an entire one entity, like Shimin. Me'achas, you add in the mem, means not the whole word, a minimized form, is Shemi Shimin. Heina, what does it mean you do them? Plural is avais. Meheina is toldais. So now comes along Rav Yosi and explains, Achas shehi heina, what does it mean that you did one tzivoy, one act, which is similar to heina, which is similar to plural, one thing which has numerous malachais. Zidain Shabbos is shigas malachais, which means you knew it was Shabbos, you just didn't know which malachas were chayiv, and therefore you could have one achas because you know it's Shabbos, you just don't know the particulars. So it's heina, it's plural because you end up with many chiyuvim. On the flip side, heina shiachas, I could do many things, only be chayiv once. Means Shigas Shabbos, you just didn't know it's Shabbos. Uzadin Malachas, of course you know the Malachas, you know it's Shabbos, therefore it's only going to create one Chiyuv. That's going to be the case of Shitas Rav Yosi. Stop over here when we get into Shitas Rav Yehuda on the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.